Hey everyone, for case study number 1, I feel like Diane should advocate for giving the constructed response assessment since that's aligned with the way that the students had practiced throughout the unit. And that's the way that she provided real-time feedback to them during the lesson. It helps track the learning process from the beginning to the end point of the unit because you're using the same sort of questions to gauge that learning throughout and measure whether or not the students truly understood the concepts and can apply them. If you can apply your learning to a variety of different scenarios, then you are demonstrating a much stronger level of understanding than it would take to just simply select one of the multiple choice options given. I do understand that she may have to give the standardized assessment because I do work in a district where I feel like we overassess our students and underutilize the data sometimes simply because differing departments have different opinions and viewpoints on what kinds of assessments and what forms of assessments would be most beneficial. So I definitely, I can relate to being in that sort of jam before, where you feel like this is the way that I want to assess because that's what's best for my kids. But I'm being torn in another direction because, the district said so, or because, we've just got to get it done. So I feel like if she did need to take her assessment and integrate those beliefs throughout the unit, she could certainly use those scenarios as smaller lesson snapshots. She could use them sort of like exit tickets, do one a day, have like a task-based rotation coming from primary. Stations were a big deal for us. So, you could always have the more paper-based application of learning and then cycle through another station where students have to do some sort of task to demonstrate the learning. That would be another great way to work some of those concepts in. I do prefer the constructed response assessments, particularly in my role now as a math interventionist, because I feel like it gives me a better level of understanding of where that student is when they can tell me exactly what their thought process was, where I can see that in their work. I can go in and I can correct misconceptions on the spot. I can support as needed and just make sure that they fully understand what needs to happen from beginning to end of the task. It's more information for us. It's more data for us as educators. And every little bit of data helps if you're someone that is willing and able to use that to guide your instruction further, as we should be. Another reason why I like the constructed response is because sometimes our multiple choice standardized tests can be a little intimidating for parents, particularly if they do not feel like they are very good at that subject themselves. I've had parents that we've sent home, star-based questions, and they're like, oh, I can't do this math. This is too complicated for me. So it's kind of difficult for them to understand what we're really asking of the student when you send home homework assignments or graded work like that. Whereas if we give them a real world problem and we say, hey, last week we talked about pizzas. We were doing a real world scenario where we talked about fractions in conjunction with, cutting a piece of pizza into 8 slices. And this is what happened. This is where your student is in terms of understanding. This is where your student is in terms of where we still need to do a little bit of work. Parents can take that and say, oh yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. I've seen a pizza before. I've seen 8 slices before. I can help my kid with that. That's a real world situation that I can support as a parent. And so it's a little less intimidating when you're asking for parent support if they can visualize exactly what's being asked. And students also who can see the value of what they're learning. They can further appreciate the why behind what we're being asked to do in the classroom and what our learning goals are. It encourages the further buy-in from them, and it motivates them to do well. So again, I think there's lots of great data that Diane could pull from this. She could inform future lessons and her interventions as needed. She could also communicate student progress, not only with the student, but with other parents and stakeholders. And if she needed to pull a grade from that for, the end of the year grading period, she said that she had a rubric in there. That's a great way to justify, hey, we did this application task, and this is exactly what we're seeing in terms of student output. So I think that's another great way to just demonstrate multiple methods of student understanding and learning. So